You told a story once about manifesting. You used to put checks on the ceiling and manifested some interesting experiences.
So when I was pregnant with my son, and I went to like this power of the mind
Mm.
training, because I just wanted to try to have my mind as healthy as possible because I was going to be a mom. I was like, oh, it was unplanned. So I was like, okay, planned or not, I need to be healthy, mentally healthy. So went there, and then somebody was like, oh, have you watched The Secret or something like this? So there was a book. So I went home and I watched the movie because they had this thing where they wrote a check and
Yeah.
they put feeling. So I was like, you know what? I could really use 10 grand right now. I wanted to coach. I wanted to do new
Yeah.
things. And so I did. I put $10,000 on it. It wasn't even a check. It was just a piece of paper, 10,000.
Nice.
I put it on the ceiling. I used to read to my belly when I was pregnant before bed.
Yeah.
10,000's coming, 10,000's coming. And then all of a
Nice.
sudden I start being like, well, actually, it's already here. Thanks, thanks. And then something so strange happened. All of a sudden, within the next 2 weeks, I got a money in the mail saying that they messed up on my taxes somehow and they owed me money. And I was like, oh, cool. And then I got a bonus at work, and it was like thousands of dollars. And then they asked me to take on a new wedding. And instead of like going through the hotel, and it wasn't that much work, it was just like money coming from unknown places. It was incredible.
Mm.
And long story short, within like 2 weeks, it was something like maybe $20 under 10,000. It was just, but it was like unknown money. I know that last year when we spoke, oh, from last year to this year, my life, like I'm in a different part of the planet. I'm in a different career. I'm 1,000 times happier because it was meant to happen that way. I know it was, because however happy you can be, actually you would have had to have feel the pain on the opposite side. So however much
Right.
pain, because it's a balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when we talk about our mental state and life and energy, it's always a balance, just like how some magnets and then some batteries, right?
What is going on, beautiful people? This is your favorite certified life coach, Hossam Abu State. Today, we're going to be meeting with a good friend of mine, Tiffinnea Roberts. Tiffinnea is a co-worker in the self-improvement space. She teaches people how to use their brain better in order to optimize the best possible life for themselves. To give you a little bit of a background, Tiffinnea and I met during a self-improvement program held by John Ashraf. If you're not familiar, John Ashraf was one of the people in the Secret movie. And now he has a company where he teaches people very valuable things about self-improvement, manifestation, and how to achieve our goals fast and efficiently. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit today as well. If this is your first time to my channel and you enjoy this content, hit the like and subscribe button in order for the knowledge to reach more people. Also, check out my website for free life coaching tools to book one-on-one sessions to work with me, and for a discounted monthly membership where you get to meet with me 4 times a month one-on-one to do transformative work and unlock persistent emotional and mental patterns that hold us from optimizing our relationships, our careers, and our self-image. Tiffinnea!
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, very well.
How was your day?
It was good. It was pretty busy.
I had a weird beginning of the year. In January, I injured my back a little bit, and I couldn't sit for a long time. Sometimes I couldn't stand for a long time. And then 3 weeks ago, I got COVID. And then with the fever, my back pain became like 10 times, right? I couldn't sit, stand, lay down, anything. And then I'm out of COVID, so I'm good. And I just have this little cough, little voice thing you can probably notice.
Glad you made it over that hump.
Yeah, thanks. And it's all for growth, Everything that happens to me is happening for me and my spiritual growth. Does that sound familiar to you?
It really does.
It's from John. It's from the vision board.
Yeah, thank God for that program. I remember taking certain programs before going through like life changes or just wanting to like invest or better myself. And I always tell people, I'm like, try to explain to them, like I've had other coaches, and I say like they're like a shop where you have all the good information, you could get all the knowledge you really need, but John's course is like a library.
Yeah, that's right.
Things that people learn, and I don't think people could really, unless it was their day job, they can't get through it.
I've been there for a year and a half, I think. I haven't finished it. Barely did.
when you're going through it, all of a sudden you're just getting these like aha moments and like all these like epiphanies of self and
Yeah,
life.
right. And it's so rich. One of the few things that it offers is building a vision board, and I never had a vision board. I've built it, and that was the main thing that I got from the course, that I haven't skipped one day. I mean, I skipped few days, but I really been religiously doing my vision board every morning, reading it with emotions. And when I come back from work, sometimes I read it again. Sometimes before I sleep, I read it again. And it's been life-changing.
Oh, that is wonderful. It's beautiful. I keep moving through different places. So like my vision board, I'll like see on my phone sometimes, and I'll see it on like, oh, I gotta get to where you are on that. The one big thing that I took away from the course was being alone with your thoughts is going to create the best outcomes in your decisions. Like when you just avoid all the noise and everything that's going on everywhere in your life, whether inside your home, outside your home, at work, wherever it is.
Yeah.
How can you make decisions for your own life with everybody talking about their ideas, their opinions, what you should do? Then you end up living life or out of duty to other people and their thoughts, right?
Yeah. Consciously or subconsciously?
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say it's more subconsciously.
Yes.
Consciously, you're like, yeah, I talked about these ideas or these decisions I had to do with this and this person, whether it was my parents, my church, my teachers, whatever it was. And we came up with this idea. So this is good for me. Instead of, well, I went deep inside myself. I thought about it. I thought on it. I slept on it. I asked people questions, or I didn't ask people questions. And I really came up with the answer on my own. We've all made decisions where we were listening to ourselves and not others. And well, that wouldn't be what they would do, but we did it. And we've been happy with that decision because it's something that you wanted, right?
Yeah.
And versa, we've all made decisions what somebody else wanted, and maybe we weren't so happy.
Right. That's really cool. Consciously, we rationalize it. Like if it's conscious, oh, we talked about this and this is the best thing to do if we're not quieting the noise. But when we quiet the noise, then we have clarity. And then we go and engage with the world again. And then maybe we'll get off track a few times throughout the day. But then we come back and we get back on track, realign, recenter, regroup. And then it's the long journey. We just keep coming back to where we're supposed to be.
Yeah, if we're lucky. If not lucky, if we trained ourselves to do so.
And that's funny. Today, something happened to me at work that really pissed me off. A project I'm working on, and the project manager talked to me about my work hours. Like I was taking a lot of breaks or something like that. After the meeting, I was really pissed off because I felt controlled. Like I don't like to be controlled or constricted. And it's probably an emotional trigger. My mind or my emotions are making it to be bigger than it is. I know that because after I finished work, right before we spoke, I took a walk and I did a lot of breathing exercises. And I released a lot of emotions. And then now I'm more cool about it. Actually, it's not a big deal. Like it's a regular thing. But at the time, I was so triggered. Do you have experience with that? Do you have knowledge or tips on what to do when triggers happen in the moment or maybe a little bit after the fact?
I think in a situation where somebody does something that either offends you or triggers you to feel like, whoa, I am really stepping out of myself here and I'm not okay with these feelings. And then you have to go off and like you said, do some breathing exercises to calm down. One, you got to look at, okay, so why did that trigger you? Right? Was it that you weren't able to take responsibility for something that was happening? Or do you feel like you were wronged and they went against something you value? If somebody, I guess, harms your, or you feel has harmed you or wronged you because it went against your values, it doesn't matter if they were saying you can't take breaks, you have to work harder, or if they physically harmed you in some way, went past your boundaries. I think the biggest thing is you need to, you stop, thought about it. Okay, what's happening? Yeah. You understand what the triggering is? What was it that went against your morals, your values, or your happiness? Why was your happiness changed? Right? And as far as like the things of what to do you're never going to stop having certain things like, whoa, I didn't like that. Like these things, this is part of living with other people and energy on the planet, right? Like
Right.
we're not going to control everybody else's energy. The only thing we can control is our own, right? But we have to take responsibility for what we are bringing into our energy as well. So I don't think that there's any one answer to help yourself stop those triggers, unless it's a repeated trigger that continued to happen. Like if you were feeling a few times a week or even once a week, but if it was continually happening with your boss or any coworker that was triggering you, then you need to look at, am I in the right environment that fits my morals and values? Opposed to, we can control the environments that we are volunteering to be in. And so if the environment's not good for you and it's constantly, triggering you or creating unhappiness because you're not living true to yourself or within your values, then you have to look at the environment around you. I would be careful to not just keep jumping to new environments because you feel great for now. We're always going to be doing things that maybe we don't really want to do, right? But if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So we have to remember that too. Like, what is the goal? Where are we going? I hope that gave you a roundabout answer about how to control those triggers, because you know what? If somebody knows the answer of exactly how to control triggers, I want to know. Because what I got figured out is you need to control your own actions. And also understand why it triggered you. Because you might be able to, if you understand why it triggered you, you can think about it differently. Because you feel like you were working so hard, it was unfair. That your boss was unfair to you. Well, then you need to create an environment where, you know what, showing them I worked this hard, I feel like this wasn't fair. Or maybe you need to look at how many hours it takes to create this. Or it's a responsibility thing too, right? Like if you feel unfair, then you need to change your environment. But if it was, I'm triggered because I'm mad at myself for not doing better, then I hope that answers the question for anybody who's feeling, well, I'm angry and I'm triggered because I'm not happy with the way I was. Well, that's not the environment that needs to change. That's you.
Yeah, that's really cool. You said many things that resonated with me. When you say, you're always going to have some level of frustration. You said something along those lines. It reminded me of the Stoic philosophy. I think Marcus Aurelius in his meditation books, he says that straight up. People are frustrating. You just have to control your reaction. Essentially what you were alluding to. And then when you mentioned the environment, am I in a good environment? Am I in the environment that matches my values? That's true too. There's always going to be a level of gap. It's on a spectrum, right? Nothing's ever perfect. But you have to be closing the gap between the environment's values and your values as much as you can. In my case, I would say that's certainly a value. That's a gap that was causing me a frustration. And then a third thing that you said, that if it was easy, anyone would do it. And that's the mindset shift, because when I was doing the breathing exercises, so when I'm doing the breathing exercises, my intention is not to calm myself down. It's my intention to release that anger, right? And when you release that anger, you're free from it. Now you can think clearly. So as I was doing these exercises, I started to gain some clarity. And one thought that came to me, I was like, man, I have an amazing life. Compared to where I was, let's say 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I have an amazing life. So perspective change. So I think it's two factors. It's perspective, the way we think, and the other factor is the emotional. The emotional is the part that we don't really control that much. Is just maybe memories from the past, maybe something we can't figure out what it is. I found that breathing exercises really help release emotions, whether it's anger, whether it's joy, because many of us have suppressed joy. And sometimes we do some exercise and we burst out laughing. And then thought patterns. Like when you say, if it was easy, everyone would do it. Yeah, when you start to think in a grateful way, right? When you change your attitude, have more positive attitude, outlook, then your emotions also change. And then you get better results. And then your life becomes better. It's like a snowball effect.
It
Yeah.
really is. I like that you use that, like the snowball effect, or like the rippling effect,
Yeah.
right? Because you just mentioned that your life is getting better and better every year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, chances are you're around people that are more in line with getting better and better, more and more, right? You're surpassing yourself in so many different ways. And what you're like going to be a magnet to others that are vibrating in the same place, right? Like we attract what we're thinking about, right? And what we're feeling.
Yeah.
So if you're
Mm-hmm.
feeling, I'm going to get better and better, my life's going to be great,
Yeah.
somebody can't think in that vibration or in that moment isn't going
Yeah.
to want to be around you. They're going to think you're
Right.
crazy. Oh, there's so many things to complain about. Why aren't they upset? Why are they always happy? Oh, they must have half a brain or something like this. And then
Yeah.
you're going to be attracting those people that are like, oh man, I'm so excited. My life is getting better and better, and I'm only going up from here.
Yeah.
And what happens is you're going to connect with that person. Right? If misery loves company, then
Yeah.
what is happiness? Happiness is happy to be around happiness, right?
I love that. That the chances are that attracting people who are. I remember now what Jordan Peterson says. If you ever listened to him or read any of his books, I really like him. He's a Canadian psychologist, and he says you have to aim upward, and you have to find people and surround yourself with people that are aiming upwards.
Have you ever seen, I think there was like memes and pictures that were like going around the internet of it, but it was like, it was super funny. And I remember reading it on a day I probably needed it. It said, have you ever thought to yourself, you have a great life, you're just surrounded by assholes?
Yeah.
I was like, that might seem true for some people. I really believe, I don't remember what book it was from, but it was a book I read maybe even in high school. And it talked about how those sayings like birds of a feather flock together. And it talks about how you are the 5 people that you're around.
Right.
And so the 5 people that you spend most time with, you're going to mirror them, reflect them, and vice versa. I remember a story when my son was young. I told him that. He goes, Mom, I don't like everybody. I was like, you don't have to like everybody, honey. I was like, of course you don't have to like everybody, and everybody doesn't have to like you. And I said, choose 5 people you want to be like, and spend most time around them. And I'm your thumb, man. I'm not going anywhere. So you actually only have 4. And I was like, you're gonna be like me no matter what, because I'm raising. And so choose 4 friends. And I was a teacher at the school he was at. And I remember being on the playground, and this little boy came up to my son, and he wanted to play with my son at this time. But the boy was very rough often, and was quite a bit older. And so it intimidated my son. And the little boy was often in trouble. And my son, he says, and I'm out there, and I almost wanted to like run from this moment, but he's like, why don't you want to play with me? Why can't I play? And then he said, my mom said, I'm like the 5 people that come around me, and I don't want to be anything like you. And I was like, oh no. I always remember that, but I do believe it. I do very much believe it. Where do accents come from? It's because we're listening to people that are beside us. Where does the values we live by, they might not be our own, but they are probably the values we live by, comes from the people that are around us. We don't want to upset or rock the boat that's around us. We don't want to upset our parents or our teachers or our bosses or church, whatever it is. So then we eventually realize that we're just living this life, going through the motions day by day. And you know what? If you can make it through life and happy with all those decisions, that's so wonderful. That's great, because you're happy. But there's so many of us just kind of waking up and being like, I don't want to go with these motions anymore. I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't even know if I'm living the life I want. And of course, we don't most people I know don't want to rock the boat in that way. And so,
Yeah.
and I think that's where they start to search for those 5 other people or try to connect, right?
Mm.
Many of us have been in situations where they're trying to find a group. Like a lot of these, for myself, when I was pregnant, I wanted to find like, you know, a mom group or something so I could
Yeah.
connect with people. We were going
Yeah.
through things. And for the life of me, I really felt like I had a hard time connecting with certain things, with certain groups, because I wanted a mom group that wanted to like do brain training and meditations and maybe some yogi, cooking, different things. And I couldn't
Mm.
find that for the life of me. And what I could
Yeah.
find people upset because their parents wanted them to get married or didn't want them to get married, or I thought I was going to do this, but now I have to have this job. And it was mostly all about talking about how everybody around them had an idea of what their life should be like now that they're mothers and they have a child.
Yeah.
Right. And so I find it like, no wonder why so many women have children and then they're trying to keep everybody happy and this child alive, happy, well, and keep everybody around them happy.
Yeah.
Then as soon as the child grows up and leaves, they're like, well, who am I?
Right.
Who am I? I don't know what I value because nobody's telling me what I value anymore because
Yeah.
I get to make my own decisions. I'm on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm not sure how many people you know in that.
Many.
Or women that you know or that are
Yeah.
like, I don't know what I'm doing now. They're gone. What am I going to do? And they start getting so obsessed with what are they going to do when they're in high school, right? What am I going to do? They're going to be gone soon. I'm seeing that all over.
Yeah.
This an awakening of, oh, wow, we get to use our own mind. We get to make our own decisions. It's wonderful. What an amazing awakening for you, for me, for us on the planet. But then when you realize that you have all these options, maybe it's a little bit of a disservice to have so many options because you're like, well, what do I do?
Yeah, it's amazing that to learn more about the brain and how to use it.
When did your journey start? When did you decide to, you know what, I want to take my brain and change
Yeah.
it, train it for whatever I want. Tell me about.
Yeah, I would love to tell you. So I graduated from architecture school 2015, and I was living with my dad, and when I was younger, I was always into self-improvement and listening to self-improvement speeches and sessions, whatever, on TV. But then when I would hang out with my family and friends, I would revert back to the normal thinking that we don't have much power. We're just cruising along. We're drifting, whatever the wave takes us, kind of. We try, we work hard, and all that. And then when I graduated, something wasn't sitting right with me with all that kind of programming, right, that I was absorbing. I was allowing myself to take. I bought my first self-improvement book. It was called If I Can Do It, You Can Do It. How to Win in the Sport of Business, Mark Cuban. Thin book. I wasn't into reading at the time, so it was a small book. I was like, let me have it. I read it and I realized that everything that I was absorbing from the world around me that I thought is about how to live a good, happy, balanced life was wrong. And in my heart, I kind of knew it was wrong, but I didn't have evidence to say it was wrong. So when I read that book, I was like, oh my God, like, I love this. This is true. This makes sense. And all the programming that I have that I really don't like that much isn't right, isn't effective. So I started, that was the beginning of the journey, 2015. That was the first book. And then I started reading books. And then 2 years ago, I joined John Ashraf program. I think that was one of the first programs I joined. And then I joined 2 other mentors that I really admire. And it just grows, And then I started making videos on YouTube. And then I started coaching my friends. And then I started making more videos on YouTube. And the essence of all this is not what I'm doing. The essence of all this is how I'm changing on the inside. My emotions, my thoughts, my well-being, my character. That is the essence. Whatever happens on the outside isn't the important thing. It's just a byproduct, whatever it may be.
That's powerful. Isn't it amazing when you discover that how to improve yourself is kind of like teaching yourself what you know, what you want. And it's like, it just kind of like, once you're like, wait, I don't need to live like this. I could do like, there's other things. I have a different purpose. I know that there's a different life out there for me or for others. And then all of a sudden it's just like, it's a really beautiful feeling, but it's almost like just like these creations of what you can do in life. It's just like it oozes out of you. It's just like, and then what do people do in that? Like they just want to tell everybody. They're just like, oh my God, guess what? You don't have to do what you're doing. You know how you say you don't like your job? You don't have to do that job. You do something else. You don't like, that's not to say that somebody should just quit their job and, you know, there needs to be a plan there, but it's amazing to see those mental transformations. Like we are bombarded on social media with these physical transformations and muscle pics and lose weight and all these different things and like facelifts and makeup tutorials. Where are the mental transformations? Where are the transformations? They're coming though. They're coming. They're out there. The more that you yourself and others realize that they could look within, figure out what they actually value and put that into play in their life.
Yeah, but I'm very curious, what has your journey been? How has it been like? And also, I know that you told a story once about manifesting. You used to put checks on the ceiling and manifested some interesting experiences. I would love to hear that in more expansion, because I heard it very briefly.
So when I was pregnant with my son, and I went to like this power of the mind training thing, because I wanted to try to have my mind as healthy as possible, because I was going to be a mom and I was fairly young. I was 24 and I was like, oh, it wasn't unplanned. So it was like, okay, so planned or not, I need to be healthy, mentally healthy. And so I went there and then somebody was like, oh, have you watched The Secret or something like this? So there was a book and people loaded me up on so many books. And I was just like, oh my God, I have way too many books. And then somebody goes, oh, just watch the movie. It's like word for word the book. So I went home and I watched the movie because they had this thing where they wrote a check and they put on the ceiling. So I was like, you know what? I could really use 10 grand right now. I wanted to coach. I wanted to do things. And so I did. I put $10,000 on it. It wasn't even a check. It was just a piece of paper, 10,000. I put it on the ceiling. And I remember I used to read to my belly when I was pregnant before bed. So I would read some stories. I would look up, 10,000's coming, 10,000's coming. And then all of a sudden I start being like, well, actually it's already here. Thanks. And then something so strange happened. All of a sudden, within the next, I would say 2 weeks, I got a check in the mail saying that they messed up on my taxes somehow and they owed me money. And I was like, oh, cool. And then I got a bonus at work. And they said, you know what? You've just been working so hard. We decided that we were going to give you this bonus. And it was like thousands of dollars. And then they asked me to take on a new wedding. And instead of like going through the hotel, because the person wanted me to help them with this wedding. And they were like, so you'll just get everything. And it wasn't that much work. It was just like money coming from unknown places. It was incredible. And long story short, within like 2 weeks, it was something like maybe $20 under 10,000. And I was just like, but it was like unknown money. I was still getting my money from my job and different things. But it was just all of a sudden, all this just new money that showed up on top of the other money. So I wasn't like, well, I didn't make it, because I was making it, right? I'm surprised they don't use it more often. I think it's like one of those things where I know that it works, but it's not something that I guess it's something I probably should tap into more often. Because I know that it works. I've done it. And it's so amazing when you hear other people that have done it and they're like, do you know this works? Do you know this works? And I'm like, yeah, totally works. Yeah, so I guess that's a story about that. But yeah, I think I've always been on and off, knowing that for anything great to happen, it has to start in the mind. I've always believed that. And I've always felt like when people would tell me, oh, well, you can't do anything about this, you can't do anything about that, I would be like, why? Like, I would always question those things to the point of probably being in trouble more often than I needed to be, because I'd be like, what? Well, I can. Well, if you don't want to do that, but I can do it.
Right.
I know that last year when we spoke, oh, from last year to this year, my life, like, I'm in a different part of the planet. I'm in a different career. I'm 1,000 times happier.
Nice.
Because it was meant to happen that way. I know it was, because however happy you can be, actually, you would have had to have feel the pain on the opposite side. So however much pain, because it's a balance, right? Like, talk about our mental state and life and energy, it's always a balance, just like how some magnets and then some batteries, right? There's always a balance. So
like the waves in the ocean.
Yeah. And it's however happy or however negative and how like to the bottom and awful you are feeling actually means that you can hit the other side in that amount of happiness. I don't know how much you remember of when we had a session last year, but I remember right before I took the John Assaraf course, I remember thinking my life is about something really awful is about to happen. Something I'm not going to be able to control is going to happen, and I need to be mentally prepared. And I knew that my life in Sweden was getting very difficult and just certain things weren't working out, but I didn't know why. I was just like, why is nothing working for me? Why am I not happy? Why am I scared to go to sleep? Because I don't want to wake up tomorrow and do the same thing again and again. Like I just like my job. And it wasn't that it was a bad job. I just didn't agree with what I was providing on this planet. And I was a teacher and I didn't agree with the curriculum. I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. These motions are just, I'm just going with the motions and I don't even like them.
Yeah.
And so it was every day waking up to disagree with my own life.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, oh, something is about to happen because my brain is changing and I don't know if it's for the better. I don't know what's happening. I don't know if I'm about to go crazy. I don't know. I don't know. And so the little bit of money that I had left, and everybody's like, don't do this, don't do this. And I was like, well, I'm making this decision because I know it's right for me. And I paid for the John Assaraf course. I had like no money. And I was like, I'll be able to figure out money later. But right now I don't have any and I need help. Like to change and these things. And I was never angry about it. And people were just like, what? You're like on the other side of the world. You're a single mom. You need to take that money and like buy tickets or do this or do that. And I'm like, that money will come. I needed this. I need this. And this will be better for my son, myself, for everyone. And then my life just crumbled. I was still never angry that I spent the money on the course. Never. And I never wrote it. And if I ever say it, then somebody come here and let me know. And so I was just, okay, I have to retrain my brain. And as I'm trying to retrain everything was crumbling. Like I decided to leave my job. They were like, oh, we understand. We're going to pay you to throughout the end of the summer. My dad got sick. And so they were going to be helpful in all these things. And then I was like, okay. And then I left Sweden. The job never paid me. Didn't. I sent all mine and my son's things. And I'm not a pack rat. We didn't have very much. I sent all of our stuff courier from Sweden to Canada. Somehow the company went into liquidation. Everything was gone. All my stuff, all my baby pictures from my son that my grandparents ever gave me, everything that we had was all gone. And then I had some issues going through the borders. We have our dog with us. It was just, it was a nightmare. And then, but all while I'm still like telling people, well, this course is going to help me. And people are just like, you're insane. Like your life is falling apart. And I'm like, but I knew that I was like, it's happening for a reason. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. So I
Yeah.
come back to Canada, and then I was thinking, okay, well, should I apply for teaching jobs? What do I do? I went to university to be a teacher, and all I could think was how many tears I would have if I had to go back Monday to Friday, every day teaching, evenings talking
Mhm.
to parents, weekends thinking about how this child says this is happening at home and that child is angry at it. How do I help all these people at once?
Yeah.
The answer was I can't. Like I can't.
Hmm.
I can't do it in a way that I don't agree with either.
Yeah.
And that was the breaking point of just all I'm doing is listening to somebody tell me I can
Hmm.
live a different life. So I need to do it now. Now I need to live a different life.
Yeah.
And so now I'm here.
Right.
I'm back in Canada with family, and I really wasn't sure what I was going to be doing. And I was so scared because I didn't have a job. And fortunately for me, I have a wonderful, very generous family, and they all really missed me and my son. So they were all fighting for who can have us.
Oh, nice.
So I got to spend a few months here, a few months there, different places
Yeah.
in Canada with family. And then
Nice.
through it all, I was doing meditations. I was
Mhm.
working on myself.
Yeah.
And I'm just listening to so many people talk about how they're not telling me that they were where I was, but they're telling me without really telling me, like, oh man, if I could do something else in life, oh, if I had the opportunities, if I, what if, but not
Mm.
doing anything. And then when I started talking to people like, you actually can.
Yeah.
You want
Yeah.
to read this book? Do you want to take a program?
Yeah.
So,
That's amazing. So that was the beginning for you. You used to do, or you still do, tarot card reading, correct?
well, I do energy readings, but some people really like the tarot cards, so I could bring them in.
Okay.
But I've always done that, actually. I've done that for about 16 years, maybe longer.
Okay.
I got stuck in Australia one time. I couldn't get a work visa, and I was there with my son. I was like, "Ooh, how do I make money?" And so I just started.
Oh.
But I was already doing that before, just always as a hobby.
So what's the skill for it? Is it intuition?
Yes, like intuition, but it's also, I think, you have to read somebody's energy. You have to like have the ability to read somebody's energy. I believe everybody has this ability. They just have to tap into it. And the biggest skill is making sure that the other person is comfortable. Because if they're not comfortable, all you're doing is picking up on their fears,
Right.
and they're not going to have a very nice reading.
Yeah.
And then they're going to be leaving scared of energy, because they're going to be like, how did they know all those things and all my fears? And that's not how I like to read. I would rather figure out what are the things that they actually want and give them confidence to go after them.
Yeah.
And let them know if there's certain energies that maybe they should be staying away from, and other energies where they should be embracing, into their lives.
Yeah, amazing. So how can one tap into their intuition?
It all goes back to the mind. It really does. It all goes back to the mind, about calming the mind, losing that noise. But really, it's about, number one, you have to calm the mind. Number two, you have to slow down your heart. So if you're calm, your brain is quiet. Like, and that doesn't mean you're not thinking. We're always going to be thinking. Don't stop thinking.
Yeah.
So what I mean is keep all the other noise out. So your mind is calm, your heart is slow. And when you're connecting them, when you're actively from a soul level, tell your mind and your heart to slow down and connect together. And that's really where, like, that people talk about, that's prayer. When your mind and your heart come together, people talk about, oh, that's their meditation. That's the way that they answer questions best they can in life. Well, that's where our intuition. And if you allowing that the other person allows you to connect with their energy, then you could actually read it. You could actually find in places of another person's body where they need help with. Physically. I know that I took like a program where we were able to go into somebody allowed you to go into their body to find if there was anything troubling them. And people were able to find cancers. They were able to find infections or different things. People were able to even like help adjust different bones. Wow. It was amazing. It was, have you ever heard of Silva?
Yeah.
Silva? Yeah.
The Silva method?
Yeah, so I took the Silva method back in the 90s. And since then, it's been turned into like a little bit different. Like there's a Mind Valley thing, and it's a little bit more of like a marketing. They
Yeah.
market it a lot more.
Mm.
But I took it, the woman's name was Karen Chambers, a long time ago. And people were like doing this and learning about how to change their mood with colors and different things. Like it was, I just remember it being a really cool weekend away. Learning
Nice.
about all these things.
Wait, so can you tap into somebody's physical body and see what the energy is doing?
Yep.
Okay, I would like you to practice it on me. Because I believe that my lower back injury is actually a spiritual manifestation. I think psychologically I have something that I'm unconscious of that manifested itself in an injury.
I believe everybody has the ability of Reiki, of like just taking the energy. Like if you go down to a meditative state and you're taking the energy and you're asking it to go where it belongs. This energy doesn't belong here.
Yeah.
And releasing it. There's
that's
Reiki,
nice.
I think a really beautiful thing, because we all have the ability, like even like kids on the playground. I remember there's so many kids, like if they run and they like fall and they hurt their knee, and then the other kids, they hurt them, and they're screaming. Then you go up and you say, oh, well, we could help them right now. And they're like, how? We're not doctors. How do we help? And I always tell kids, and I'm like, you have to rub your hands like this. Yeah. And you're going to ask to bring all the energy from your whole body. And they're like, because they don't know different. They're not looking at me like, what? You're being weird.
They're free to imagine, but we have a critical mind that doesn't allow us to imagine.
Like, okay, I'm going to rub my hands. And then I say, okay, so you don't have to touch the knee. You just focus on the knee with your hands. So you take your hands and they'll all be standing around this little one. And the little one will be like, Miss Roberts, it's working. And then all of a sudden they kind of leave feeling better. I remember I just did that on my back. Actually, you may have not seen me, but I did that and I put it away from my back a little bit. I felt energy. Yeah, of course, like if you're always going to feel energy, whether you know it's there or not. Like when people are like, well, I don't really believe in energy. Well, you don't have that choice. Right. Well, I forgot who exactly said it. I think it's Nikola Tesla. He said, if you want to understand the secrets of the world, you need to think of it as frequencies and energies, not necessarily physical 3D things. Yeah, that's and kids can do it. The Buddha, when he was reaching enlightenment, I heard this story from Sadhguru. I took one of his courses actually, and he says the Buddha, when he was meditating, trying to reach enlightenment, he realized that his body was not an actual thing. He realized that his body was a vibrating frequency, a vibrating energy, and he gave the analogy of a ceiling fan. A ceiling fan, if it's going so fast, you just see it as a plate. You don't see 3 different fins or 4 different fins. So logically, your senses, your eye is giving you solid evidence that this is a plate. This does not have gaps, but it's spinning so fast. So our body, there comes the analogy, our body is like this fan. It has a lot of gaps. It's actually energy just vibrating so fast to the point that we can actually touch it. The same way, if I put my hand in this fan, it's gonna get hurt. Or if I throw a rock in this fan, it's gonna redirect or come back. It's not gonna go through. But our body's going way faster than this fan. That even when we touch it, our finger doesn't go through. Or if I touch it with the bottle doesn't go through because it's vibrating so fast. But in reality, it does not even exist. It's just energy in frequency, something like that. This is something I couldn't get past, not being able to teach this in schools. Like I had a really hard time with being like, well, why can't we tell kids that they get to do what they want? Why can't we tell them to understand who they are? Why can't we tell them that, yes, they should have a few moments alone each day to think for themselves? Because if we could understand that there's realities that are around us that we've created on our own, we've created them because that's our reality to us, because that's what we were told, we were taught. Like nothing came into existence without being thought about, without being created somewhere in our mind. So if more children, because I think it starts with kids, right? So
Yeah.
if more children were able to have this, not only information, but have the idea and the confidence that they can think and they can create, we would just have such a beautiful, like more beautiful, like our world is already quite beautiful. If somebody says, oh, you know, we don't live in a beautiful world, well, they're not looking for beauty, right?
Yeah.
Those people that are like, wow, this is super beautiful and I don't see anything wrong with what's happening, it's because they're looking for what you're looking for, what you want to see, what you're creating yourself.
Yeah.
And like, because children are already there, and so if we're able to keep that longer, oh my
Yeah.
god, the creations and the inventions and the world we would live in would be so different, right?
Yes, I agree with you. I wish this stuff was taught to me in school. I think I heard it from John too. Like, we spend fortune on our education, which is very valuable, but we don't spend a penny, and it's not even available to us to learn about ourselves and our brain and how we can take more charge of our brain, our confidence in life, our happiness, our trust, right? Our well-being. Yes, I have a friend, I have to give him credit. We were talking about manifestation, and he told me it's like a 3D printer. You know, to have something printed from a 3D printer, you send a drawing to it first digitally, which is the thought in this analogy. So it happens in the brain, you send it to the 3D printer, and it's a matter of time until it comes into the 3D world. The 3D printer is just working on it slowly. You just see bits and pieces. But if you wait few hours, if you wait few days, then you have what you thought of. I love this analogy.
I feel like I want to think about things that I've never seen on the planet just to see how fast they can come into play.
Right. You continue to think that thought, it starts to happen subtly.
It really does. You know, it's amazing. I'm working at a coffee shop right now. Actually, as you know, I'm doing a lot of different things, but one of my jobs during the day is to come to this coffee shop. And it's so strange because normally around the first drink of the day will be throughout the day. Like the other day, it was just non-stop teas. And it's a coffee shop, and we rarely have that many teas.
Wow.
And it was like, we called it the almond milk tea day. So everybody wanted tea with some almond milk. It's like, did somebody say like there's a lottery winner out there drinking tea with some almond milk? And then all of a sudden there'll be like one day it'll be nonstop caramel drinks. So we always we're like a joke about like, oh, so what was the starting drink today? Because it's just like it ripple, like it could be, and it'll go on till like 3 p.m, from 7 a.m.
Yeah. I don't know what to make of it, but first thought that came to me was momentum. It's just some momentum happens, but it seems to me like it's more of an energy, like this energy in the air, or the thought, or just the vibrations in the air, and I walk through it and I get influenced by it. Like you said, birds of feather flock together. The 5 people that you hang around with, it's not necessarily the ideas that you listen to and write it down. That doesn't happen, but it's the vibe that we walk into and walk out of, and walk into and walk out of. It changes who we are. And then the manifestation of these vibes are the words that we listen to, are the behaviors that we see and receive and feel. But it's like there's a vibe in the air. It's just a cloud that you walk into it and you take some of it. Almond milk.
Have you ever walked into a store and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I don't know if I want to be here right now? Or walked into a room and all of a sudden you're just like, what kind of energy am I walking into? And you just feel like, what's about to happen here? I know people are like, oh, that's your intuition. And I'm like, yeah, but intuition's actually energy. You're getting a feeling, right, from the energy that's there. Yeah, I don't think I've ever been in a car accident and didn't know it was going to happen. I remember, it was an awful car accident when I was, I believe, 21. And I remember saying to my friends, it was like, you guys got to slow down. You guys have to slow down. And they were just like so annoyed. I was like, hey, you guys have to put seatbelts on. I'm so serious. Slow down. Something's going to happen. And we ended up hitting an elk. Oh, I was in the back seat, and thank God they slowed down, because I was yelling and yelling, and they were like, relax, you need to relax. I'm like, I'm not going to relax. And it was like 40 minutes later that I was fighting and fighting. And I was like, stop, you really, really need to slow down.
Right.
I felt like there was this nice energy. And I remember right before, because I was behind the driver and I pulled on their seatbelt, like stop. Then they slowed down, and then all of a sudden elk hit.
Oh.
And thank God they slowed down. The poor guys in the front, because the elk came through in the legs and the feet, so they were the elk was kicking, and the people in the front got really injured. And I remember afterwards people would go, holy crap, how did like and I'm like, I didn't manifest that. I just knew that this road, not like there was something happening. I didn't feel scared for myself. I felt scared for the other people, because I felt like something was going to happen to them. And there was actually another time, I think I was 14 or 15, where we got in an accident. And to this day, the guy, his name's Joey, to this day, he's like, do you remember the time you saved my life? Do you remember the time you totally saved my life? And I'm like, yeah. I remember we were sitting in the back seat with some friends up front, and he was bouncing around, and I was like, sit down and put your seatbelt on. And I remember like thinking in my head, like, if we got in an accident right now, he would be a goner. Then he was like laughing at me, and I was just like, seriously, put your seatbelt on. And you heard the click, and somehow we just went zooming off the road. We rolled 8 times. It was awful. We had to have our parents come pick us up from the hospitals. It was like a big thing. And I just remember him afterwards, he goes, if I didn't put my seatbelt on in that exact moment.
Done.
And I was like, I know. And he was like, they would tease me like, oh, you're like a witch. And I'm like, no, I just felt like, this isn't a good moment. Like, because sometimes we feel that, right? Like some people talk about being in a bar or a restaurant, and all of a sudden they feel like they need to leave one side of the room, and eventually do. They're like, oh, I don't feel comfortable there. There's something. And then all of a sudden they leave that side of the room, and the fight breaks out. Or something falls from somewhere, right? That's the energy like coming from somewhere.
Yes. My own experience with that, I may use different words to describe similar thing, but I think my personality and growing up, I didn't really feel my emotions that much. I was always in the head, right? Thinking, pragmatic, logical, practical. And just recently, I've been learning that I need to tap into my emotions and see and feel what I'm feeling and honor it. I don't necessarily have to take action upon my feelings, but I need to honor it and let it through, because it's in the body and it has a function. I imagine this. I imagine our emotions are the signal, are the connection between our spirit and our mind. For my mind to listen to my spirit sends my emotion signals. Okay, and I've been listening to Abraham Hicks recently, and what I learned from her or them, and what I also added on my own, is that so we have the emotional scale. Okay, it's an emotional scale. It starts from the bottom vibration, let's say 20 to 200, very low. Shame, guilt, fear, depression, and then it keeps going up to 500, let's say courage, and then it goes up to love, 700. And then it goes up to enlightenment, 1,000. So the idea is our spirit is holding that 1,000 emotional vibration all the time, and holding thoughts that produce this kind of vibration all the time. And the only reason we feel discomfort when we are upset or fearful or ashamed or feeling guilt, the only reason we feel discomfort is because we have this reference, this gap. This gap is creating discomfort. If our spirit was not holding this high vibrational emotion, we would just feel, hey, I'm feeling shameful. It's not discomfort. I'm not uncomfortable because there's no reference. There's no gap. It just is. So I've been learning recently to ask myself, what am I feeling? And try to honor that emotion and let it through. If it's anger, then I need to express it. I don't need to immediately go to the mind and act in a rational way. I can act in a rational way, but this emotion needs to be addressed. If it's telling me to change something immediately, then I need to change something immediately. If it's telling me that I need to work on something within myself, a memory that I have that I need to fix and improve and readjust, then I need to do that in This way, I can move forward to the future that I aspire to with ease. Otherwise, I'm going to self-sabotage if I don't resolve my emotions, if I don't honor my emotions.
There you go. Awesome. Awesome.
You talked about self-sabotage during your webinar.
Yeah, that's such a powerful thing to, I want to say understand, but there's understanding and then there's truly feeling the understanding. So like, I love the Abraham Hicks books and all these, so great, but it's so nice to hear a takeaway like that, because it's true. When we talk about, like, say if you're in the wrong environment, if you're not in the right environment and getting triggered, right? Or feeling like you're not valued, or feeling like, you know, you're not living your true happiness. Because a lot of people feel unhappy because they're actually not giving enough of themselves. They're not what they should be doing. Because for one, maybe they don't know what they should be doing. They don't know who they actually really are. Then they start feeling negative, and they don't even understand that they're in an environment that doesn't even connect to their values. It doesn't, they maybe don't even agree with the values that they're living by. And they don't, it's subconscious. They don't know. Right? So they're just feeling like, I just feel like crap. I feel like crap. And then naturally, if you're feeling like crap and you're living a life surrounded by people that maybe you don't really connect with, so you're not in the right environment, the only way to go from there is self-sabotage. And I would hope that for some people, when they're self-sabotaging, if they could figure out on a conscious level of where they want to go after sabotaging, maybe they could sabotage the right bridges so they can get to where they actually want to be in life. Yeah,
I love that. That's a nice trick. Sabotage what needs to be sabotaged so you get where you need to be truly, authentically.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to it's a hard thing to change, right?
It's a hard thing. So here's my experience with it and what I've learned, what I've seen in people I speak to. You say that meme with the environment, right? And you say that the 5 people you hang out with and birds of feather flock together. And one of the mentors I admire is Jim Boyd, I believe is his last name. Why do people, they start the year with all these resolutions, but they don't last? It's not because of lack of willpower. We have an abundance of willpower. But it's because the environment always wins. I think you said that. I think you said the environment always wins in your webinar.
Yep.
And the environment goes from not only the people that you hang out with, from your workplace, your sleep place, your kitchen, your living room, everything.
From everywhere.
Right, your car. Like, if you want to start now and do something so simple, clean up your closet. Take one item that has been sitting for 10 years and you haven't put on and donate it. Get rid of it. If you declutter your desk, you declutter your mind. That's environment. And when you do things like that continuously, you will require less willpower to do the things that are proper for your future, for your dreams, for your goals.
Thank you for that. I'm trying to remember the name where she talks about, she can be a little like extra with her language sometimes, but she talks about how like the 5-second rule.
Yes. Her name is close to Tony Robbins. It's something Robbins?
Possibly.
Anyway, she wears glasses.
Yep. Beautiful blonde woman that's just like all in her head and really wanting to teach others right now. Yeah, really. Her language could be a little bit fun for some.
Yeah.
But she talks about how willpower is bullshit, right?
Yeah.
She's just, like, what about willpower? Yeah, like, do you think willpower is going to work for you? You think when you go home and you have a house filled with goodies and a freezer filled with cakes and different things, and you're saying that I'm going on a no sugar diet this week, you think willpower is going to help you? Like, it's not going to help you. It's your environment helping you. If you're saying, okay, no sugar, or, oh, I'm going to make whatever choice it is. I'm going to change the way I think, or change some behaviors. But yet you haven't changed any of those beliefs, right? So if you're going to change a behavior that you're going to be doing yoga every day in your living room, but you never changed your living room, and so you're going to have to do it in that moment every single time. No, you're not going to start moving furniture every single time that you're going to want to go off and do yoga, especially if it's a new activity. It's not going to happen. So you need to change the environment. If you're around people that complain about whether it's money or their wives or their husbands, whatever it is, chances are you're going to find reasons to complain about money or your wife or your husband or your children, whatever it is. I'm sure that everybody has this one thing or a few things where they're like, oh, I would never be in an environment like that. Like, for sure, I never felt comfortable in environments where people were complaining about their children. Yes, they could talk about their hardships and talk about, well, I'm trying to organize different things, but I never felt comfortable around a parent that was just nonstop complaining about being a parent. I knew I never wanted that for me and my family. And it wasn't that I thought every day, like, oh, parenting is the best thing in the world and kids, they can't do anything wrong. Like, it wasn't like that at all. It was just, I never want to be in that moment where I realize that I'm harming my family in that way. In complaints and unhappiness, because they feel it.
There's also chronic complaining and there's appropriate complaining.
You know them, and it's not fun to be around. When I was 18 years old, I worked at this little pub restaurant, and they had some slot machines, like a casino thing. And you had to be 19 to gamble, but I was 18, so I was allowed to work there, but I wasn't allowed to gamble. I've never gambled in my life, and I honestly believe it was from this experience. So I would work there every day, and people would come in and they would be so miserable. They would come in, they'd be rude, they would grab things, this and that, and give me my, I don't know, my rum and Coke, or give me my Pepsi, whatever it is. And they would just sit there and be like, oh, and just on the little slot machines. And I remember this man coming in, and he was furious because it was a little small town. And so the bank was there, so you couldn't say no to cash their checks. So why was the bank right next to the casino, the town casino? Like, it was ridiculous. And so he would come in and he'd be like, my wife was here. We're going to lose our house, and stop cashing her checks, and only cash the checks if it's for me. But they would be in her name, some of them. And it was, oh my gosh, it was like this experience of just seeing this, this wall of misery and unhappiness, and people coming in and upset, and then people leaving, and only a little bit of happiness every now and then, people dancing around a slot machine, and then it would just be miserable. And I remember thinking, that'll never be me. I will never be that miserable if that slot machine creates that emotion and that like resting face. Like, oh God, that'll never ever be me. So no matter what the experience is, what we take from it is the biggest thing. Like, what we actually digest. Like, for me, that experience was, I will never be that person. I will never be there and sit there and complain about my children and my family and not having any money while I'm putting every quarter into
in the slot machine.
And like, I'm sure we all have those moments where we were like, whoa, I don't want that to be me. So that energy, I never accepted that energy ever. Right. And then I'm sure that there's other things where I accepted a lot of the energy where I shouldn't have, right? We all have them.
If you're in the environment, you're going to accept it, even if you are determined not to accept it. That's what happened to me.
And especially for growing up, whether it's parents or teachers, the way the government is working in your area, or the church, or if it's your spiritual views, your religious views, doesn't matter. They all mold us as we grow up. Like, as teachers, we don't tell kids, like, we question them and we get them, oh, like, what do you think? What do you think? A little bit. But if it comes down to a hard decision and them actually asking questions that can change their life. We're promoted, like, we're asked to say, well, what does your parents think? Well, what do you do at home? Like, you never want to, but you're not allowed to explain to them that they could change something in the world. They could do something new. To an extent. Thinking I went off.
No, that's so cool. So we talked about environment, and we talked about quieting the mind, talked about gratitude a little bit. We talked about manifestation. And then I have 5 questions here that I barely asked any of them. We just started a conversation from the beginning and we just went on and on. Let's see here. I wanted to ask you how we can improve the way we use our brain. I also wanted to ask you pick, and then I'll let you go because I don't want to
So
keep you
how
forever.
can we improve?
The way we use our brain.
Okay.
Different ways to meditate. Is there a beginner level? Like, can you get children to meditate? Let's stay with that. Like, how can you make it palatable to children? And do they need to meditate? And how can they benefit from meditating? And you as a mother, how can you benefit from having your kids meditate?
I think I can answer both of these questions at once. So there are so many different ways or different forms of meditation and different ways. Use what works for you, right? The best way to calm your mind is to meditate. If your environment, you can't be alone often, so invite them to meditate with you. Right? And as for can children meditate? 1,000%. Oh my gosh. I remember my son when he was little, he would come in sometimes and he'd be like, Mom, Mom, Mom. And I'd be like, whoa, you need 7 minutes. He goes, I don't want 7 minutes. And I'm like, 7 minutes, honey, 7 minutes. And he'd be like, but Mom, I have to tell you something. And I could tell his energy was, he wanted to complain about something, he wanted to be upset with something. And he was okay. So there was no need for it. And I'd be like, okay. And you want to tell me your problem, but I need you to have 7 minutes meditation. And so we would turn on the meditation, and I have like even little pictures of him meditating on his teddy bears. And then after like the 7 minutes, he'd come to me and he goes, Mom,
So
I thought about it, and yeah, my friend made me mad, but next time I'm just gonna tell him that made me mad. And it made me sad that I ran home to tell you about it, and I should have just told him it made me mad, and then we could have played longer. And I'm like, yeah, maybe.
That's amazing.
Because they learn how to control themselves, their actions, their emotions, and they actually learn how to understand where these emotions and actions are coming from. Like he was able to think, wow, I didn't even get to play with my friend because I just didn't tell him, hey, I didn't like that. And if I didn't get so upset, if I would have just took action on, oh, I don't like that, my friend would probably say, okay, I'm not going to do it again. And then we could, stay playing in the sandbox or wherever it is. Right. And now my friend went home, and now I don't have a friend to play with.
Right. An analogy just came to my mind that I have to share. So it's often when our mind is going fast, we see, let's say abstractly, 10 meters. Like whatever situation is happening, we see 10 meters. And then we don't see the centimeters that are within all these 10 meters. But when we calm ourselves down, our mind down, our heartbeat down, then we start to zoom in and see these centimeters. And then we're so close to them that they're so big. Then we now have control and we can see clearly what's within these centimeters. And then we can take conscious decision, and then we can zoom back out, and then it's a smoother trip. It's a smoother task.
I just envisioned you slowing down time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good way to think about that. Okay, I need to back up from this meter, think in centimeters, what's going to happen. Right. Because our actions might have reactions and other actions. Right?
Yeah, and the 10 meters have 1,000 centimeters. That's overwhelming. But when we zoom in on only 5 centimeters, it's only 5 centimeters. We just see what's happening, and then we zoom back out, and then we see 10 meters, not 1,000 centimeters.
They say that sports players do that with their meditation, right? They like zoom in and out of their games about how it's going to happen and what's...
That makes sense, and also goes hand in hand, I guess, with practicing slow, because you have to know the micro movements within one movement to really make it efficient and more perfect. That's so cool.
So I want to answer the question about, is there a beginner level? The most amazing thing I believe about meditation is, the most amazing thing is that it works. It helps you. It creates a better life the more you do it. But meditation isn't like something where you're going to master. Nobody's like mastered meditation. Nobody. because it's a continual thing. And it's not one of those things where you start 5 minutes and then all of a sudden 10 years later you're doing 2 hours. That's not the way it works, right? If anything, the idea is when you start, like maybe if you can't handle a full 10 minutes, you start with 3 minutes, then with 5, like, 3 minutes a day, and then you go up to maybe 5 minutes a day, maybe 15 minutes a day. And then once you've got to a level where you're able to almost feel those feelings that as you're meditating throughout the day at any time, right? So it's not something that you're going to just grow and grow and grow and grow, but it's not something that you could do 5 times and then it's over. It is that you need to be doing consistently. Like when you talk to Tony, like when you're talking to John Assaraf, or you're looking at people like Oprah, Tony Robbins, like these people that are really trying to help others and say, don't think my life is amazing. Understand that you could be doing this too. Like, I just figured this out. And so learn from this. Like, you could do this too. You don't hear any of them saying, well, I meditated 5 years ago and since then my life is great.
Yeah.
You hear them saying, I'm constantly exercising my brain because it's never going to be enough. Right? And that doesn't mean that you're going to work yourself to the bone all the time with meditation. That's not about that, but it's always about, wow, I can do this. I could achieve these thoughts, this inner peace, these feelings. I can understand really what manifestation is. And to the point where I think you'd have to be comfortable with your own level of doing it, but then you'll be able to, clear your mind while you're on a drive, clear your mind, the line in the grocery store, or when you go for a walk, time in nature, clear your mind when you're cooking for your family. You're going to find those little moments where you're like, oh, I have 5 minutes. Oh, but I have such a busy day. That's okay. I'm going to figure it out in these times. And it doesn't mean you have to have headphones on. You have to be listening to somebody's perfect meditation. If anything, I really love the part of the program with the John Assaraf program where he talks about create your own meditation and like record it. And so listen to it. Listen to your own affirmations. Listen to where you're going. Put it in your voice. And then it's in your head again, and repeat it. And as new things come up, make a new one. Right? So, so this idea that, well, if I start meditating now and take away the word meditation, if I start exercising my brain, now for a little bit of time every day, it's going to have to work up and up and up and up. No, once you understand how to train your brain on the inside to control your beliefs, actions, and behaviors on the outside, I don't think it's going to come down to like, I need this 20-minute session. It's going to come natural to you. Right. But it's not going to be, well, I did it for 15 years and now my life's great.
Continuous. It never ends.
Right. Because for one thing, your values are going to be changing. Your passions are going to be changing. It's amazing to listen to so many people worried about when their passions change. Why are you upset about your passions changing? When you look in the mirror, are you the same person you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago? So why can't you like new things?
Right.
Well, I always told myself that I was going to do this, and then I went to university, and I always told myself that this was the best for me. And I'm like, and was it good for you? Yeah, it was. So I probably shouldn't change it. I was like, is it good for you now? Oh, like, and it's amazing. Like, I'm working a lot with women right now in this area. So and I would put money that it's with men as well. But it's amazing how we've trained our minds to feel guilty to grow and expand and enjoy new things. Yeah, but I get it because my brain was there. Like when last year, right? I was like, why am I not happy with I have a good job, I have a good life. Why am I not happy? There's Jim Carrey, like this Canadian actor, right?
He talks
about, well, of course people are unhappy. They're not even living a life that's aligned with who they are on the inside. It's just like this, the Joneses, like,
Right.
you're like, wait, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to put decorations out today? I don't want to.
Right.
Yeah. Again, I'm going off
So
on.
cool. I love it. So how do you deal with that guilt of growing? Brain training? I definitely say yes. I'm just curious.
I would say brain training, but it's not, once you trained your mind, right? And I'm sure you've been there, you know, that Frankenstein, right? How John says, like, so Frankenstein's going to come up and and that's going to be your challenge.
Right. For anyone that's going to watch this, what she's talking about is that we have a Frankenstein brain, we have Einstein brain. The Einstein brain is the creative one that has no limitations, that has no fear, no boundaries. And the Frankenstein is the more logical brain. It's like, hey, be careful. Hey, this is dangerous. There's risk. And that is sabotage. If not controlled properly, it sabotages us.
On either way, right? Yeah.
So the idea is to spend time with Einstein brain, maybe brainstorm on pieces of paper, all the ideas, all the ways, all the solutions, and then bring in Frankenstein to make a plan for it, to make a linear strategic plan that you can then follow, that is solid and trustworthy. And that's intelligence. That's bringing the two brains and combining them.
So well put. Thank you for that. I feel like that's going to be when Frankenstein comes up and it goes, no, I don't like this. I don't like change. That's going to be the hard part for us. And that's when our brain's going to feel shameful for not being able to get ahead. So the biggest step then is, and it sounds like I'm putting it all, well, so I'm just going to put it all on the person. You have to take responsibility for not just doing it anyways, right? Like,
yes.
We could say, like, well, I wanted to do this, this, and this, but then I stopped because of whatever excuses. So actually you didn't want to do that because you wanted to save this, or you wanted to stop this, or you wanted to cancel your fear on whatever it is. So all these excuses, whatever they are just excuses. Like they're meaningless if you're not actually going to get what you want. So if you're saying, well, I didn't change my job because I was worried that I wouldn't get enough money. So then you didn't want a new job. You wanted the money that secured you now.
Right. Or you didn't want the new job bad enough.
Yeah. So I think, like, for when you're saying, like, how do we get rid of this shame? We need to look at where the shame is coming from. And it's really taking responsibility for your own actions and your own beliefs. Like, you trained yourself to believe the things you believe. So, and in believing those things, it created your habits, and then you created your reality. Like, your personality creates your reality, right?
Yeah.
If once you realize that, then it's all responsibility on you. It's like, well, yeah, I think this way, so this is why my life is like this.
Yeah.
Well, then choose a different thought.
Yes. It's like you say, when we look at, Tony Robbins, Oprah, it's not like they meditated for a few years and then now they're chilling on the beaches. They're putting in the work every day. And what I hear you saying now, it reminds me of the pain equation. There's always going to be that element of pain. And it's either we choose less pain now, more pain later, which we can accomplish by not taking action, and avoid that guilt, or avoid facing that guilt and avoid growing. And that's going to give us less pain now, but more pain later. Or we can take more pain now for less pain later, which is taking action, growing, withstanding the guilt, and curing the guilt and healing the guilt in the process.
Yeah, just like releasing it. I don't know if we want to heal it. We don't want, like, it doesn't need to be healed. It just needs to not be with us anymore. And people are like, well, if I send my negative energy away, where is it going to go? Where it belongs. Because if you want to feel really good, however good you're going to feel, eventually, like, you're going to understand that you felt that bad. So it's all a balance. So maybe somebody out there wants to feel complete pain and suffering so they could reach a level of complete joy. Like it's going to go where it belongs. You're not going to send negative energy out into the world and then it's going to smack your parents. That's not the way it's going to go. It's going to go where it needs to go. And sometimes people need negative energy. They need it so they could feel better energy at a different time, right? Like if you can't know good unless you know bad, and we know that. But we have to understand that and like actually embrace that. And so what? So what if somebody had a life where they felt ashamed of and hurt and suffering, and now they're living the life they want, they're happy, they're embracing their change, and somebody might be like, well, you know, they didn't always have a good life. So what? Like congratulate them, they got out of it. Or else, and if you're feeling like, if you're that person that's feeling a little bit of resentment for somebody changing and moving on, well, maybe you grab their negative energy, so send that somewhere else. It just release it, because it's not going to go anywhere. Like energy, you cannot create or destroy energy. Nobody can. You can't. I can't. Nobody can. But you can ask for new energy. You can I guess be a magnet to certain types of energy, right? And then with the opposite, it would be bouncing off you, right?
It's a swapping game.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love that. I love that when you say some people need negative energy so they can feel good, you have to have the contrast. I like that. Like today I had a challenging experience. It wasn't necessarily challenging on the outside. Emotionally, to me, I have certain memories from my childhood that made this experience challenging. Because I had it, now I have awareness, and now I feel good because I worked on something that was in the darkness. So I took some negative energy, and now I'm feeling good.
Love it. I love it. I don't know what your belief is on how children come.
Maybe the spirits choose the parents so they can grow in this specific experiences. That's what I learned from Abraham Hicks.
Okay, so I believe this. Like, I always find it really funny when kids say to their parents, "I didn't ask to be born. You have to help me with this because I didn't ask to be here. You had me." And my son, I don't think will ever have the opportunity to say that, because I've never let him have that opportunity. Because I'm like, well, no, actually, because you're not me. You're your own soul. You're on your own journey. So that actually means you chose me. And so many people say, oh, well, what about children born to parents that weren't kind to them, or born in poverty, or born immediately with disease? And I'm like, yes, they needed that. Their soul chose to maybe feel that bad. So they can go the opposite way to feel that good at one point. We're not all here in our meat suits, whatever you want to call them, forever.
Meat suits,
Like we're born, we learn, we experience, we grow, and then we pass on. Right? And so we're taking all of that with us. There is a reason why we're not just big meat suits, and we have like all of a sudden we're like, why did I think that? Like I sometimes, like, I lie to myself in my head all the time. Like I'll be like, I don't think that, what's going on? And I'm like maybe I'm not just me, maybe there is something else there. Like, what is going on with our souls and energies within us? And we all came here to experience something. I don't believe that means that we came here and all of our life is planned out for us. I believe that we came here, we chose our parents, we chose somewhat of the upbringing, we chose what we're going to take from it and how we are going to move on with that. And so at some point when you're an adult, you can't blame your parents for anything or your grandparents. It's just, no, you're going to take what you want from those experiences and you're going to make your own reality. You don't have to believe what they taught you is right or wrong. You don't have to believe what anybody taught you is right or wrong. Like there's a story about two boys. They grew up with an alcoholic father, and He wasn't necessarily a nice father, always money problems, never having enough in the home, maybe going homeless sometimes. And both these boys experienced this. One of them became very successful, had a beautiful family, wonderful house. And you ask them, well, how did you do all this in your life? Oh, well, I had a father that was this way, and I never wanted to be like him.
Yeah.
So I chose for myself that I wasn't going to be like that. So that's why I'm on this path.
Yeah.
And then you ask his brother, a homeless man on the streets, no money, an alcoholic. Well, how did your life turn out like this? Well, my father, this is all he taught me. So I'm like this now. And
Decision.
you hear these stories all the time.
Yeah.
And it is our reality on this planet that we're living on, right?
Yeah.
Right. It's what are you going to take from it? It could either make you or break you. So both of those boys grew up in the same house, had the same parents, had their own experience, but within the same environment.
Yeah.
One chose to use the excuse to make something out of himself, and the other was to use the excuse to live the way he was.
That's amazing. That's inspiring. You know what? I started this call. I was concerned because after I left work, I was like, man, I have this important call. I want to be in a good mood. But then it turns out things worked out that way because I needed to speak to you to be inspired by the stories you told me. So I'm going to ask you one last question. If you were to change one thing in the world, to leave an impact, what would it be?
I would, if I could change one thing, I would put in the educational system a program that would help people calm themselves. Maybe not just in schools, but in education, whether it was university, college. I think it would be important and to have that so not that I'm changing something, because I don't want to change anybody. Right. But I want to grow the understanding that they can do it for themselves. It's like people say, well, you want to be a healer. No, I don't want to be a healer. I'm going to give you the tools to heal yourself. That's amazing. What I want. I don't want to give you a fish. I'm going to teach you to fish. Yes. So if there was a way that there could be some type of change in the education system of people being able to do what they actually want and come from a place of soul purpose, not the purpose that people are telling them, but their true soul purpose. I would like that change. I would like that. And there's a lot of things that I'm like, oh, because I've lived in many countries, right? As you know, I lived in Bangladesh for a year. I have so many thoughts on that. I lived in Egypt, in Australia. I lived in China. I lived in Spain.
Did you know I was born and raised in Egypt?
No, I didn't. I don't think I did.
Okay, for the next podcast then.
All right, yeah. Whereabouts in Egypt?
Cairo.
Okay, that's okay. So I lived in Cairo. I love certain different parts of Cairo for sure. I like Alexandria. Have you been there? Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And the seasides, oh my God. They really know how to make things look like spectacular, like all the lights and the fountain. Ooh, so nice. When was the last you were born there, so when was
3 years ago I visited.
Awesome. So you must have so many like ideas, like from you being born in a country like Egypt, having Egyptian parents, I'm guessing, and then moving, and then all of a sudden experiencing this different life. And of course, there's similarities, but there's clear differences as well. So you must have so many ideas or thoughts, like, because I know how connected yet how disconnected the world is. Yeah. Because you go to all these places and you're like, oh, we're really connected for things, but why can't we take the good thing of here, the good thing of there, the good thing of there, and put it all together? And I got to ask you this question. What is something you, from seeing either those two cultures or the other cultures you've seen in the world, what is one thing that you would want the cultures to come together on?
Okay, I'm going to do a roundabout way of answering this. In my personal experience, if somebody was to ask me, okay, so how to distill this transition, I would distill it in one line or two lines, and it's wherever you are, whenever you are, do the best that you can with what you have. That's just the simplest form. And then when I speak about the two cultures, you know how we speak about we have the emotion and we have the mind. In the Egyptian culture, I noticed there's a lot of emotion. The emotion is really honored. 2 points where it's resourceful and 2 points where it's not so resourceful. And then when I come to the American culture, it's so organized. Everything's so logical and ordered. And the people, their emotions, they're inhibited. And it's almost like there's also this emotional programming, like people produce emotions on command for daily situations, right? Everything's on a spectrum. So my keyword is balance always. So you can be so inhibited that you're just lying to yourself, you're oblivious to your well-being, and you're just going through the motions like we were talking earlier. Or you can be all about the emotions that you just have no control. You're practically an animal. That's a dangerous path. So to me, if I was to leave an impact, or if I am to improve myself, it is to be in touch with my emotions and to honor them in a balanced way. And to use this amazing tool, the brain, to organize and order my life and have a meaningful life in an ordered way, in a balanced way, all together in a balanced way. So I already forgot your question, but I tried to answer it.
I think you answered it. So my question was, what would you hope that like the two cultures would come together on? Like could they come together on? And it looks like you're saying like there needs to be a balance. Like, yes, there needs to be order, but we should be able to have emotions with this order.
That actually may be why today I was uncomfortable in a situation at work. It was because I felt that there was imbalance in the way things were happening. That's why I felt frustrated. So there we go, full circle.
Oh, I love it. I had so much, I enjoyed chatting with you today.
Me too. And thank you so much for making the time.
Oh,
and sharing
thank you.
the love and the knowledge.
Yeah. Good thing we got the time, eh?
Yeah. Where can people find you, by the way, Tiffinnea?
So they can find me on Facebook for Intuitive Energy Academy. I started an academy that has a lot of different energy work. There's meditations, there's learning how to train your own brain. And there's also like intuitive guided readings, because those seem to be a hit and so fun for people. And I also have like live Monday meditations with me and my family. That could be
Amazing.
fun sometimes to check out. Yeah, so Intuitive Energy Academy, there's one page that says Wildflower Readings, but I'm trying to get everything over to the Intuitive Energy Academy. But I feel like some of my followers haven't let go of Wildflower Readings yet. They're like, well, we still like it.
Nice.
And that's okay. And on Instagram, Brave Peaceful Lioness, because that's a little like me, very brave, going off to different places in the world, trying new things. And I like my peace, man. I like peace. I just want to spread more peace and inner peace, right? And so brave, peaceful, and what a lioness is, right? Got a little bit of bravery, got a little bit of everything there.
Yeah.
Right?
Amazing. Do you happen to be a Leo?
No, I'm an Aries.
Oh,
Aries.
nice. Fire sign.
I tease about me and my son because we're very I feel like we balance each other out pretty good. And then recently I found out he was a water sign. So I'm like, okay, I get it. Because I'm kind of like creative out there doing things. And I think he calms me down a bit. He's like, Mom, did you remember these things? Do you have your keys?
Yeah. Amazing. Tiffinnea, I had a great time. Thank you so much.
Me as well. Thank you so much, Hossam. Bye for now.